Ladies and gentlemen, what would you do if the world mocked you for being less, only for fate to prove that your heart was worth more than money, fame, or power? Today's story is not just about romance, it's about respect, dignity, and the hidden worth of a man everyone overlooked. Stay with me until the end because the final words of the female CEO in this story will leave you in tears, and trust me, you'll never forget them. And before we dive in, if you love emotional stories that touch the heart, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel right now, because you won't want to miss what's coming next. It all began with a man named David, a janitor in his mid-40s. His hair was streaked with gray, his work uniform always smelled faintly of disinfectant, and his hands bore the calluses of years spent scrubbing floors no one else wanted to touch. David worked at a prestigious corporate building in the city, a tower of glass and steel filled with the world's most powerful executives. To them, he was invisible, the man who pushed a mop across marble tiles while they signed million-dollar deals. But David had something none of them noticed, a quiet dignity and a heart that had been broken too many times yet still managed to beat with compassion. The joke started with a group of young employees in the marketing department. They were buzzing with gossip, daring one another to set up a blind date with someone unexpected. One of them, smug and arrogant, suggested, "What if we set up Mr. Mop with her?" By her, they meant the new CEO of the company, Victoria Hale. She was only 35, breathtakingly elegant, always dressed in tailored suits, her dark hair cut in a sleek bob, her heels clicking sharply against the floor like a metronome of authority. To the employees, she seemed untouchable, someone who only dined at five-star restaurants and dated powerful men in tailored tuxedos. So the idea of her being matched with David, the janitor, was hilarious to them. They arranged it through a fake dating app profile, tricking David into believing he had been genuinely matched with a woman named Victoria. He didn't know it was the CEO herself. He didn't even know the people laughing behind their desks were watching the whole thing unfold as a cruel prank. On the night of the blind date, David showed up at the restaurant they had chosen. He wore his only suit, an outdated gray jacket, slightly too big at the shoulders. His shoes were polished but old, and his nervousness made him look even more fragile than he was. When Victoria walked in, heads turned. She was stunning in an emerald green dress that caught the light with every step, her confidence commanding the entire room. When she saw David stand up awkwardly from the table reserved for her, she blinked in surprise. "You're David? The janitor from the building?" she asked softly. The waiters and a few employees from the company seated nearby tried to hold back their laughter. This was exactly what they wanted, to see the mighty CEO confronted with a nobody. David's face flushed crimson. He looked down, fumbling with his hands. "Yes, ma'am. I thought maybe this was a mistake." His voice trembled. He thought she would leave. He thought she would laugh like the rest. But Victoria didn't. Instead, she slowly sat down across from him. Her expression softened, though curiosity lingered in her eyes. "No mistake. Let's talk." The dinner that followed shocked everyone. Victoria asked him about his life, his dreams, his past. David, hesitant at first, began to open up. He spoke about how he once dreamed of being a teacher, but life had taken a different turn after his wife passed away young, leaving him to raise their daughter alone. He explained how he took janitorial jobs to keep food on the table, sacrificing everything for his little girl, who was now studying on a scholarship he had worked years to afford. His words weren't polished, but they were real. Every sentence carried weight, every pause spoke of battles fought in silence. Victoria listened, really listened. For the first time in years, David felt like someone wasn't looking at him as the janitor, but as a man with a story. Around them, the employees' smirks faded, replaced by stunned silence. They hadn't expected this. They had expected humiliation, rejection, and a quick exit. Instead, they witnessed something they couldn't explain, respect blooming where they had only planted mockery. And so, Chapter 1 closes not with laughter, but with the sound of hearts beginning to change. The morning after, the company was buzzing with gossip. Everyone wanted to know what happened at that blind date. Some mocked, saying the CEO probably pitted him. Others speculated she must have been furious once she realized it was a prank. But Victoria? She remained silent. That day, she walked into her office with her head held high, and in the afternoon, she made an announcement that no one saw coming. She gathered the entire staff into the grand conference hall, a massive room lined with glass windows overlooking the skyline. Hundreds of employees filled the seats, whispering to one another, their eyes darting between the CEO at the podium and David, who stood awkwardly at the back in his janitor uniform, a mop still leaning against his cart. The pranksters who set up the joke sat stiffly, trying to hide their nervous smiles. Victoria looked at her employees, her voice steady but filled with an emotion they weren't used to hearing. Last night, she began, I was set up on a blind date. Some of you already know this, because some of you were behind it. You thought it would be funny to pair me with David, the janitor who works in this very building. Gasps spread through the hall. The pranksters shrank in their seats. David's face turned pale. He wanted to disappear. But then Victoria continued, her words slicing through the air like truth itself. You thought it would be a joke. But let me tell you what really happened. Her voice trembled, then steadied again. I sat across from a man who has worked harder than most of you could ever imagine. A man who gave up his own dreams to raise his daughter alone, who spends his nights scrubbing floors so she can have a better future. A man who has known loss and hardship but still shows up every day with dignity. You call that a joke? I call that strength. The room was silent now. Not a whisper, not a laugh. Only the sound of David's breath, shaky and uneven as tears welled in his eyes. Victoria turned toward him, her gaze unwavering. David, last night you reminded me that success isn't about the title on our business cards, the suits we wear, or the cars we drive. Success is about resilience, sacrifice, and love. And you, more than anyone, embody those things. So if anyone here still thinks you are beneath them because you hold a mop instead of a briefcase, they are the ones who should be ashamed. By the time she finished, tears streamed down not only David's face but the faces of many employees in the room. The pranksters themselves bowed their heads, guilt pressing down on them like a stone. In that moment, the janitor who had been invisible became seen. Truly seen. David stepped forward, his voice breaking as he whispered, "Thank you, Ms. Hale. I don't know what to say." Victoria smiled warmly. Say nothing. Just keep being you. The world needs more men like you. The applause that followed shook the hall. It wasn't the polite clap of corporate meetings, it was raw, emotional, thunderous. People stood to their feet, some wiping away tears. And in that moment, a blind date meant to humiliate became a story of respect that would echo in that company forever. So, dear viewers, let this story remind you that the worth of a person can never be measured by their job title or income. Sometimes, the ones we overlook carry the strongest hearts and the deepest stories. And if this touched you the way it touched me, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel, because stories like these are meant to be shared and remembered.